Chapter 12 to 14. The Roger pirates were able to cover a considerable distance with their ship. They outwitted the pursuing Garp and Sengoku. Rayleigh, I really enjoyed that. These two are quite stubborn and tough. You're right, Roger. They're gonna keep coming at us, but at least we've managed to get rid of them for now, Rayleigh replied, grinning. Pride fell into deep contemplation as the Oro Jackson approached the reverse mountain. This is insane. Both Garp and Sengoku are only vice admirals at the moment. However, considering the current scenario, they would definitely have a chance to defeat either Kanonakiji or Kizaru. That means the Marines definitely have more than 7 or 8 people as strong as admirals or stronger. It really can't be compared with the future. In addition, Roger and Rayleigh are also exceptionally strong. Both of them can already use advanced armament hockey. Whether they can use internal destruction is unknown to me at this point, but Roger was actually able to use Conqueror's coding. And that's the cream of the crop. I think I underestimated this era. In the tavern, I heard that there were several other pirates in the New World who had crossed the 1 billion thresholds. I'm sure that some, if not most, of the big shots are well-versed in hockey. Some of them might also be able to use the Conqueror's coding. Captain, we should reach Reverse Mountain in 7 or 8 hours. RHH. This calls for some partying. Get the liquor out, boys. Rayleigh, who could not convince Roger of his decision, made sure that not too much was consumed. Although they were part of one of the strongest crews, many unforeseen events could happen on these waters. In this way, a few more hours went by on board the ship. The people drank. They partied in a restrained way. For the most part, people played cards or began to sing. Most of them were sitting in a circle. They started singing Bing's sake. It's time to ship out Bink's brew. The wind it blows to where who knows. The waves will be our guide. O'er across the ocean's tide. Rays of sunshine far and wide. The birds, they sing, of cheerful things in circles passing by. The atmosphere as a whole was nothing short of magical. Arm in arm, they sang with enthusiasm and enjoyed every moment to the fullest. Pride couldn't help but smile at that. He remembered Brooke playing it after they defeated Gecko Moria. Singing continued for hours until most fell asleep in the same place, either from exhaustion or fatigue. Step. Rayleigh, do you mind if I ask you a question? Of course not, Pride. What is it about? Pride, unwilling to reveal his knowledge, tried to appear oblivious for the time being. So he asked the latter, I am capable of using hockey. As for the nature behind your fight, however, I am at a loss. You and the Vice Admiral attacked each other without touching. What exactly was that? I hope Rayleigh will explain exactly how to learn this process. I am aware that with Shanks's template, once I have reached a certain threshold, I will be given further memories as to the next stage. Currently, I am in the beginner stage. However, by knowing the applications of the advanced armament hockey and exactly how to proceed with enough practice and diligence, I may even be able to accelerate the progress of Shanks's template, as these memories will not appear until I reach the threshold to the advanced stage. I noticed that you already know all kinds of hockey. You were also able to use Conqueror's hockey in a controlled manner back at the tavern. I suppose you are also able to coat yourself with armament hockey. Zing. In response, Pride's right arm was coated in a black substance. Well, what we did during the battle was an advanced implementation of armament hockey, which is known as a mission. Rayleigh, how do I use it? It's actually pretty simple. Instead of clenching the hockey you're coating yourself with, you need to let it flow. It's a little tricky to explain, though. As you progress with your hockey, sooner or later the time will come when you'll undoubtedly succeed. After all, trying to fly when you've just learned to walk is not wise. Thank you, Rayleigh. This has already helped me a lot. Damn, that's pretty much what Rayleigh said to Luffy when he was training him. Well, I guess I won't get any hints. I'll have to practice letting it flow later. More hours passed. The ship, Oro Jackson, slowly approached the gigantic mountain. The weather was brimming with rain. It was windy and there seemed to be many currents in various places. I cannot even see the mountain's peak. The only thing that seems to be visible are the clouds. Thought Pride, seeking shelter from the pouring rain. They began to get closer and closer to entering Reverse Mountain. Immediately, they noticed the current flowing up the mountain, splashing. With little hesitation, the Roger pirates headed into the current for the climb. Let's go, guys, Roger shouted with a grin. Doringo, the navigator of the Roger pirates, had a fair amount of experience in sailing. As it was not his first time on the Blues, the avoidance of collisions with the cliffs was an easy task for him. A few minutes passed as they steered upward. Arriving at the point where they could choose to go down to the Grand Line or go against the current and go down to one of the Blues, the weather started to change. The sun was radiating its full brilliance. There was not a ripple in sight, no movement at all on the surface. The ship was heading towards its descent into the East Blue. Rayleigh, how do you actually intend to accomplish this? To sail downstream? The latter smiled. Be patient and watch. Roger's voice echoed. You may begin. What exactly are they planning? That's not what I think it is now, is it, really? You guessed right, HHH.
Asterisk boom asterisk.
The same thing happened as it had before when they had gotten away from the Marines. Some kind of launcher that was installed at the back of the ship activated, causing the Oro Jackson to speed up. The only obvious sight was that the ship of the Roger Pirates seemed to be very high in the air. It was heading straight for the depths of the East Blue. Arwellich. How in the hell are we supposed to survive a fall from that height? Roger just burst out laughing as he heard the scream from nearby. RHH, no one's gonna get hurt, Pride. Everybody brace yourselves. Roger then knelt with one leg on the deck. He gently touched it with his hand. Zing. No way. That's crazy. Where did he get that kind of control and those hockey reserves? Exactly. Roger coated the entire Oro Jackson ship with armament hockey. They were being subjected to a free fall. With each passing second, they came closer to the water's surface. The gusts were so strong that they could barely keep their footing. A short time later, there were only a few meters between them and a collision. Boom! The water level in the immediate area was on the rise as the ship submerged. The water was almost 100 meters high. Relatively quickly, they rose to the surface unharmed and wet. However, Pride made an egregious mistake. For that, he was punished. He neglected to mention that he is a devil fruit user. Haha, Captain, we have done it again. Like always, we can count on you. After everyone calmed down and regained their composure, they noticed one person was missing. Where's Pride? Did he fall into the sea? Maybe he doesn't know how to swim, said another member. Rayleigh spared no expense and jumped straight into the sea. Moments later, he found Pride underwater. He pulled him by the arm to the surface and then aboard their ship. Pride did not budge, and so Rayleigh struck him several times to the solar plexus. Cough, cough. A cascade of water spurted from his mouth. Damn it! I forgot to mention it, said Pride, lying soaked on the ground, unable to muster any strength. Breath in, breath out. I am a devil fruit user. Haha.
Edel ahat.
Ni-hi-he. I guess you were lucky. Doringo laughed along with the crew. Pride slowly regained his composure after a few minutes had passed, but he still remained on the ground. Instead, he stood up in a proper upright position before he drank from the water that had been handed to him. Many thoughts swirled through his mind. At some point in the future, I have to get some sea stones, no matter what. After this incident, I realized the tremendous vulnerability of not developing resistance. If in the course of a battle, I were to be touched by someone with an item with a sea stone coating, it would certainly have an effect on my momentum with ease. Besides, it is well known that, in a fight to the death, a millisecond can be the deciding factor. For now, the Roger Pirates sailed toward Gol D, Roger's home, Logetown. According to the calculations of the navigator, the journey from the reverse mountain to the destination is expected to take about 7 days. However, depending on the weather conditions, it may take less or more. The entire crew had been on the ship's deck, talking. Of course, from practically all over the ship, their laughter was audible. Gulp, gulp. Roger took a few sips of his sake. Then he wiped his mouth gently. Pride, what devil fruit did you eat? Silence fell over all the members when they heard their captain's high-pitched voice. It immediately drew the attention of those who were also curious. After all, with the exception of Buggy, who will acquire one in the distant future, the Roger Pirates consists of almost no devil fruit users. Pride, under everyone's spotlight, merely grinned in response. As he got everyone's attention, Pride stretched out his arm. TK. Various objects on the surface began to lose their bearings. They began to rise into the air and float. Whoa, you gained the power of telekinesis through your devil fruit. Interesting and versatile, Roger said, putting his fingers to his chin. No, I don't think this is telekinesis. If I had to guess, I'd say, you have control over gravity itself. Rayleigh pointed out. Roger, the way you put your fingers on your chin, that conviction you had while you were speaking, haha. Whoever looked at it objectively could have seen it as a wise remark made on your behalf. Rayleigh, you are absolutely correct. I wouldn't have expected anything less from you, though. Indeed, I am in full command of gravity, Pride said, and returned the objects to their original positions. RHH, I almost got it right. Besides, my vice captain is speaking on my behalf. Roger laughed. Rayleigh just rolled his eyes and sighed. For a long time, they continued to talk while Pride told them exactly how he had gotten his sword, as well as his devil fruit. Naturally, he told them the same story he told his grandfather, about finding the devil fruit somewhere in the forest near his former hut. Soon after, everyone went to the ship's galley to get something to eat. Various dishes were served on the table. A lot of meat plates, eggs, as well as a lot of other specialties. Munch, munch. Spencer's food actually tasted quite delicious. Although the anime and manga revealed who the members of Roger's crew were, There was no mention of what everyone's role was. I wonder how Sanji's food tastes. Spencer, the food is delicious. Thank you. As usual, RHH, Roger added. A few hours later, the sun was about to reach its zenith, shining down on the vast ocean in its entirety. The waters of the East Blue were relatively calm at this time, the air filled with silence, allowing one to hear only the waves lapping against each other. One by one, the crew went about their daily routines as usual, whether it was once again to play a game of cards, to consume alcohol, or to practice their skills. Looking closer, another individual was seen on the opposite deck. His movements remained absolutely consistent. He slashed his sword from top to bottom. However, this particular figure was shirtless and sweating profusely. Thud. Pride plopped down on the deck, gulping down the water he had prepared. Gulp, gulp. I've never really thought about it because I've mostly tried to block it out, but I do miss my family and Grandpa Ray very much. I realize I can't complain about my current life. I mean, I could have been struck by misfortune the whole time I was here, too, without having Shank's template or the Zushi no Mi. Of course, I've watched One Piece until canon and have a lot of knowledge that allows me to progress without a golden finger. But it all depends on talent. So I'm quite content with the current arrangement, as it makes things much easier for me. However, I often wonder about the well-being of my family. Are they also thinking of me? How much time has passed for them? The still-seated Pride involuntarily shed several tears. What's wrong? Why are you crying? Asked Rayleigh, who had been standing beside Pride for several seconds, unnoticed by him. Pride, wiping away his tears as he looked at Rayleigh, reminisces of past memories. You're welcome to stop by any time if you ever want to talk about it. Subconsciously, Pride had to smile. Thank you, Rayleigh. I really appreciate you doing this. I'm going to resort to it sooner or later, but I guess it's time for our daily training again. Rayleigh smirked in response and drew his sword from its sheath.
Asterisk boom asterisk.
Sing sing. Perhaps the only audible sound emanating from the deck was two swords clashing. Moving with incredible speed, they both exchanged many blows. Rayleigh, who saw this as nothing more than training for Pride, used the exact same mastery of the sword that Pride possessed, except that he would gradually increase both his speed and his skill. This would ensure that Pride would be under constant pressure for more effective results.
Rayleigh peofau.
Incredible. It hasn't even been a week since I have been training with him in swordsmanship, and yet he continues to improve. Even though he lacked the experience, he already had the necessary knowledge. With each training session, he adapted more and more to my fighting style so that he was able to block or even counterattack. Even the use of his observations haki improved. He was now able to adapt more to situational demands. Whether it is haki or swordsmanship, he definitely has immense talent. On top of that, he is also in possession of a very powerful devil fruit. It made me smile with embarrassment. Roger, if this boy does not die at a young age, I am sure that he will grow up to be a great competitor in the distant future. But this is all in the hands of destiny. After all, there have been people in the past who have shown tremendous talent. However, they were unable to succeed due to their untimely deaths.
Pride. Emas me. Aha punto. Asterisk boom asterisk. Asterisk boom asterisk.
Both exchanged slash for slash. Rayleigh's expression was still serene. Pride was beginning to show signs of exhaustion. Suddenly, Rayleigh sheathed his sword. That's enough for today, Pride. I'm on my way. Give yourself time to rest. Thank you, Rayleigh. Rayleigh replied with an arched eyebrow. Well, for what are you expressing your gratitude now? For all of it. Even more so when it comes to training. It was exactly what I needed the most. HHH, it's no big deal, Rayleigh replied as he slowly moved away from Pride's location. Pride, drenched in sweat, sat down again. He paused for a moment to catch his breath before resuming his training for another session. He has read in various forums that it might be possible to increase one's haki reserves by continuously using it until incapacitation. Of course, this is in addition to the regular method of increasing the reserves, which is through life and death confrontations. For nearly another hour, Pride kept his armament haki activated. It was so low on power that it dissipated on its own. Breath in, breath out. Let's hope the second option works, too. Exhausted and sore, Pride trudged back to his room to recover from his strenuous training. The brilliant sun cast its warm glow over the expansive sea, creating a peaceful and serene atmosphere as a ship sailed tranquilly through the calm waters with no other sights or sounds to interrupt its journey. In one particular room, aboard the aforementioned sailing ship. Despite feeling fatigued from yesterday's workout, Pride was able to recuperate fully during the night, allowing for a refreshed and revitalized state of being. Pride reflected on his recent rest, noting that while it felt like a full night's sleep of 8 to 9 hours, the absence of any reliable means to tell the time in the world of One Piece created an unusual sensation. Without conventional methods for keeping track of time, Pride realized that they would need to rely on alternative means, such as the position of the sun, to gain a rough estimate of the current time. Though they couldn't recall the exact methods, Pride knew it was certainly possible to orient themselves based on the alignment of the sun. Pride, breakfast will be ready shortly. Please feel free to join us in the kitchen once you're up. A pleasant voice called out, inviting him to partake in the upcoming meal. Pride promptly dressed and made his way to the kitchen, anticipating the forthcoming breakfast. Step. Good morning. Pride greeted the assembled crew as they arrived at the dining table, ready to begin the day with a nourishing meal. Good morning, replied the rest. As always, you are the last one to attend, spoke Gabon. WHH, let me serve as an inspiration to you, Pride. As the captain, I always strive to lead by example, which is why I'm usually one of the first to arrive for meals, exclaimed Roger, emphasizing the importance of setting a positive example for the rest of the crew. Gabon twitched his eyes in response. Captain, you barely appeared ahead of Pride. The captain, Roger, let out a hearty laugh before leaning in and placing a finger over his lips. WHH, PSS, he whispered, a mischievous glint in his eye. Eventually, everyone had taken their seats at the table, and as they began to enjoy their meal, the sound of laughter and good-natured conversation filled the air, creating a warm and jovial atmosphere among the crew. Munch. Captain, I understand your eagerness to set sail straight for Logtown, but I must inform you that we need to make a temporary stop nearby to replenish our supplies. One of his mates spoke up, bringing attention to the necessity of resupplying the ship before continuing their journey. Heh, I thought you all had purchased all the necessary supplies in Batarilla? The captain inquired, a hint of amusement in his voice. Spencer responded with a frustrated tick mark on his forehead, remarking, well, I guess someone has been indulging in all the provisions and beverages, highlighting the cause of the supply shortage. No worries. Do we know the location of the nearest island where we can make a quick stop? Rayleigh interjected, acknowledging the situation and ready to find a solution for their resupply needs. It doesn't seem feasible to make a stop at an island at this point. As you all may already know, Logtown is the nearest location to Reverse Mountain. While we may have enough to drink, except for liquor, we may need to rely on exploring the waters if we run into a food shortage, Gabon explained, providing the crew with the necessary information to make an informed decision about their next course of action. So, you're saying that we won't have enough booze for the entire voyage? Roger asked, a hint of disappointment in his tone. Haha, Roger, why don't you be a role model and refrain from drinking any booze, at least until we arrive in Logtown? Pride countered with a laugh, lightening the mood and teasing the captain good-naturedly. I have to agree with Pride on this one. It's not such a bad idea, Rayleigh added, supporting Pride's suggestion. The ensuing chatter among the crew indicated that they had all come to a similar conclusion, that it wouldn't be so bad to cut back on their alcohol consumption until they reached Logtown. Roger, without saying a word, began to eat his breakfast with a somber expression on his face. Similarly, several more days passed as the crew sailed across the vast sea. To everyone's surprise, Roger managed to control his alcohol consumption during this period, drinking only in moderation to make sure their limited supplies lasted until they reached Logtown. Although the food supply was currently enough to sustain the crew, it was beginning to dwindle, and it was clear that they would soon run out. It seemed that the creatures of the sea would have to accept their fate and become the crew's source of sustenance. In contrast, Pride spent his days on the ship training his swordsmanship under the force of gravity. After several hours of intense practice, he would spar with Rayleigh, pushing himself to the limit. Later on, he would focus on exhausting all of his hockey reserves, pushing his skills to their maximum potential. As evening approached, the skies became overcast with a blanket of shimmering stars. The magnificent crescent moon hung aloft, casting a gentle glow over the ship and the surrounding sea. Before the evening dinner, Spencer, the chef, became worried that the food supply would not be sufficient. In order to address his concerns, he sought out the person who could easily alleviate them. Excuse me, Rayleigh-san, Spencer said, approaching the first mate with a hopeful expression. I was wondering if you could perhaps catch some sea creatures for us to eat tonight? We're running a bit low on food, and I know you're an excellent swimmer. Of course, I'll go take a swim and see what I can catch, replied Rayleigh, quickly removing his shirt and diving into the water. Splash. After a few minutes, Rayleigh came back aboard, dripping wet but carrying a large fish-like creature. Here you go, this should be enough to feed us for a while, grinned Rayleigh as he presented the giant fish-like creature to Spencer. As always, we can count on you, Rayleigh-san, spoke Spencer gratefully, as he took the creature from Rayleigh's hands. Suddenly, Roger appeared in between them, blocking their view. Can't I be counted on? Or how come you never bother to ask me that? After all, I like swimming too. Haha. Based on my understanding of Roger from both the anime and manga, he appeared to be an easygoing character with a humorous attitude. However, I have come to realize that I underestimated him considerably. There are many similarities between him and Luffy, except that Roger is undoubtedly more intelligent than Luff. Wait, by intelligent I imply that Luffy also has some intellect. I shall amend that though. Roger is not as dumb as Luffy. In comparison, Rayleigh resembles his old counterpart to a great extent. Even in his younger years, he appears to be quite wise. You are mistaken, Captain. We can always count on you, spoke Spencer, in a manner that seemed rather coercive. 1 hour later, Spencer had finished preparing the sea creature that Rayleigh had brought aboard as a dish. With the weather being agreeable and mild, the crew decided to forego the usual dining table and instead brought their plates up to the ship's deck. There, they formed a circle, enjoying their meal while conversing with one another. Munch, munch, Captain, we should be arriving at Logetown just before midday tomorrow. WHH Sunbell, now that's good news. Rayleigh inquired, how long do you plan to stay here in Logetown, Roger? As he sat beside him. Roger took a deep breath, looking out to the vast expanse of the sea. You already know that all my family members have passed away. I just want to pay a brief visit to the town where I spent my childhood. We'll only stay for a day or two at most, and then we can set sail for the new world, uttered Roger, his expression slightly pained as he remembered his lost loved ones. After the meal, they spent several more hours enjoying each other's company on the ship's deck until it was time to say farewell and retire to their rooms for the night. Several hours passed with only the bright glow of the sun and the chirping of birds as noticeable indications of time. Captain, land in sight. Logetown should be in reach soon, declared Sunbell, excitement filling his voice. Excellent, as before. Please make sure to position the ship in a location where it won't attract any attention, replied Roger to Sunbell's announcement. Why? Inquired Pride inquisitively. Despite the presence of the Marine base in the anime, Pride assumed that it was built only after Roger's execution. Roger cast a glance at Pride and let out a sigh. A few years ago, the Marines established a base in Logetown. I have no desire to be discovered by them so soon, and end up with Garp or Sengoku on our heels again, he said. So that's how it is. It was erected way earlier. As the Oro Jackson approached Polestar Island, Sunbell maneuvered the ship towards a less traveled area. Being familiar with the island from his childhood, Roger knew of remote and less visited places where they could anchor without drawing too much attention. As Pride gazed upon more of the island, he fell into a trance-like state. Logetown is said to be a replica of the city Florence and must be a sight to behold. With the reputation of being the last point to replenish supplies before sailing for the Grand Line, it may also be teeming with pirates, thought Pride as he gazed upon an increasing part of the island. Thud. Pride was so lost in thought that he didn't realize the Oro Jackson had already reached the remote location mentioned earlier. Let's not take any chances, guys. We don't want to be recognized and tracked down by Garp or Sengoku. So we'll only stay here for one day, said Roger, reminding his crew to stay cautious. Understood, Captain. Several members emphasized as they all disembarked the ship. Pride and the Roger pirates found themselves in close proximity to a forested area, suggesting that they may need to travel a considerable distance to reach Logetown. They didn't waste any time and made their way directly to the town. The journey to the town was uneventful, with little conversation exchanged between the group as they trudged along the dull and dreary path. In due time, they reached the entrance to Logetown. As they approached Logetown, Pride's eyes were glued to the surrounding buildings and architecture. He couldn't help but be mesmerized by the beauty of the town. Incredible, he thought to himself. It's true. The architectural design of the buildings truly reminds one of Italy. The bustling streets of Logetown were a testament to the town's prosperity, with people bustling about and carrying on with their daily activities. It was clear that Logetown was a significant location, owing to its large size and population. The lively atmosphere of the town was evident from the sounds of laughter and conversations among the groups of people that filled the narrow spaces. It was clear that the residents were sociable, open-minded, and cheerful. WHH, this is my beloved hometown, laughed Roger uproariously. Despite their notoriety, the Roger pirates were not immediately recognized in Logetown, perhaps due to the fact that it was a gathering spot for weaker pirates who were just starting out on their journey to the Grand Line. In addition, wanted posters of the more powerful pirates like Gol D, Roger were not as widely circulated in the Blue Seas. As a result, they were able to blend in with the crowd and go about their business without drawing too much attention to themselves. To begin with, they purchased provisions and alcohol, ensuring they had enough to last them for their journey to the New World, before bringing it back aboard the ship. Thereafter, they proceeded to a pub for a toast as well as to drink a few shots. WHH, bring us all some booze, spoke Roger, in high spirits yet again, partly for being in his hometown and also for the sake that he now could excessively enjoy his liquor. The Roger pirates had been spending many hours in the pub. They mainly laughed and drank. As for Pride, he also drank a bit, though in moderate excess. The liquor in the world of One Piece sure tastes a lot better than it did in my old world, reflected Pride as he took a sip from his jar. The celebration lasted until late evening, till the landlord of the pub demanded them to leave. The non-drinking members stayed engaged in carrying the drunkards back to their respective ship. This process lasted somewhat. It took them approximately an hour to lay everyone with alcohol intake down in their beds. Accordingly, everyone went straight to bed afterward. As the morning dawned, one was greeted by the twittering of the seemingly flying birds. Pride, not drinking that much booze to begin with, arose relatively early to prepare his backpack. A couple of hours later, everybody was also on their feet, with nobody suffering from a headache. Presumably, due to their excessive intake, they had managed to develop a tolerance. Moments after that, all of the crew members were present on the ship's deck. Pride faced all the members of the Roger Pirates, peering at them with his backpack fastened around him. Everyone, I sincerely thank you for everything. Initially, my intention was merely to sail with you to the East Blue without any further ado. However, throughout the period we spent together, I already grew fond of you guys. WHAH, quit your dreary whining. We shall meet each other again. Now, get down, WHH, emphasized Roger laughingly. Farewell and be careful. Almost all of the members spoke in unison. Pride turned his back on them all and waved whilst he was walking away. He halted momentarily and turned around for a brief glance. Roger, Rayleigh, be assured that we'll be meeting each other again. For certain in the new world. Be sure that no one beats you, HHHA. Laughed Pride as he jumped down from the Oro Jackson. A few moments later, the Oro Jackson was heading farther and farther away from the shore. WHAH, Rayleigh. I have a hunch that we'll definitely be encountering him in the new world, yet with vastly more strength. Certainly, Roger. Grinned the latter,